Please welcome the president of Spelman College, Dr. Helene Gayle, the executive chair of Aries Management and the principal owner of the Atlanta Hawks, Tony Ressler, the mayor of the great city of Atlanta, the Honorable Andre Dickens, and our moderator, executive editor of Bloomberg TV, Jason Kelly. Please give them all a round of applause.
So no one told us we had to follow John Hope Bryant and Charlemagne the God. That was not in our prep materials, but we're so psyched to be here. We've been having an amazing conversation backstage, and first of all, thank you to you guys for joining. I'm so fascinated to have this conversation with the three of you, in part because, and I was saying this to the mayor, I have deep Atlanta roots. I've lived here on and off through my life, as has Dr. Gayle, although you take the crown for like the leaving and coming back. We'll talk about that in a second. And so I'm deeply interested to understand how Atlanta has become what it's become. And when we think about Atlanta, I think about it in this way. It's an intersection city. It's business, it's politics, it's sports, it's culture, it's education, it's technology, where you started your career, Mayor. And I want to explore, if we can, how that came to be so that the folks who live here and live in it can understand how to keep that going, and folks who maybe don't live here can understand how to replicate that a bit. And so I want to start with you, Mayor, if I could. You are a product of Atlanta Public Schools. You went to Georgia Tech, go Jackets. You went to Georgia State. Yeah, we've got mixed results. It's fine. But how did it get to this point? I mean, you've seen this literally from here to here. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, this southern city punches above its weight class. This city that's in Georgia is the darling of the Southeast, and we continue to do that through inclusivity. Economic inclusivity is important to us. Racial, opportunities, and making sure that we provide prosperity and opportunities for all. And so that's a big thing for me. And it comes from a lineage of mayors. I'm the 61st mayor, so I'm not the first one. And so this comes after several mayors have worked consistently with our educational institutions, our business community. So Atlanta is a group project, is what I say. And I've seen it as that way from birth, and seeing how going from Maynard Jackson, who said it's not enough for Atlanta to thrive, it's for all of us to have economic opportunities. So let's level the playing field. Let's provide opportunities for everyone. And so we lean in on our diversity being an asset, which is why we have this great consortium of the AUC, where you have these HBCUs that are there, and of course you have the Georgia Techs and the Georgia States. And so the educational opportunities attract companies to get access to this talent, and then we have all of the companies that are here that we were just backstage talking about. There's nothing like Atlanta, where we have the Chamber, the ACP, we have all these various groups that we all get together, the Rotary, et cetera, because we don't just think about profits, we think about people. Yeah. And that helps our economics actually, and inclusivity. And so I'm the chairman of the board of Invest Atlanta, where we give out the resources, whether it be loans or grants, millions and millions and millions of dollars to small businesses.
And so I want to go back to something you said about education and bring Dr. Gayle in here, President Gayle. One of the interesting things is I look at your career that has brought you to Atlanta, then you went away, then you came back, as we talked about. You were here for the CDC, you came back to run CARE, you went to Chicago, and then you came back to do this job. If I look at your through line for your career, it's about closing gaps. I think would you agree that that's a pretty fair assessment? How do you do that? What's the opportunity to do that from your seat, and as you think about what's happening around you here?
Yeah, well, I think it is going back to what the mayor said, investing in people. At the end of the day, it is critical that we invest in our people infrastructure, making sure that we are giving people the skills and the opportunities that, if given the right opportunities, people can realize their full potential. It's also about how do we invest in the community. So you take a person and all that people need to be able to have a full and whole life. And part of that is how do you make sure that the neighborhoods that people live in, give them the kind of opportunities, that there are access to resources so that they can start businesses and gain wealth. So I think if you start with making sure we're investing in the people and then all the things that are necessary around people, as Mayor always says, he wants to make Atlanta the best city to raise a child. Well, you don't just focus on the child.
Right.
You have to think about the neighbor. You have to think about the educational system. You have to think about the neighborhood. You have to think about the infrastructure. So all of those things, but it starts with how do we invest in people and give them the things that they need to be able to realize their full potential. We know that anybody, given those things, can soar and move forward. We just, as a society, have robbed some communities and some people more than others of the opportunity to realize their full potential. So if we do those things, and if we make sure that the policies are in place to continue to favor equity, then I think that's when we start being able to close those gaps. And I also just will say, I think we also have to recognize, why did those gaps begin to start to begin with? And we know that we have a history in this country that has disproportionately robbed some groups of people over the others. So we also have to think about, how did we get here? Because you can't have a solution if you're not addressing the underlying
Right.
issues as well.
That's a great point. Tony, it's interesting because you and I knew each other in sort of a previous life when, and you still are the chairman of Aries, but when you were doing that full time before you made the leap to buy a basketball team, because why wouldn't you do that? I mean, and it's a great team, go Hawks. We're rooting for you.
We could use the support.
We're sending a lot of positive vibes your way to take on the defending NBA champions tonight, but we'll set that aside. It's been interesting talking to you since you bought this team 9 years ago, I believe, and something that you have seen, or I'll ask in a slightly different way. You've seen a lot since you got to Atlanta that I think maybe surprised you in terms of opportunities, in terms of things that can be done, whether it's about closing gaps or whether it is about, I think, if you really distill it down, this notion of public-private partnerships. How do you execute that?
Well, you have to keep trying. And again, to paraphrase the mayor yet again, what's so extraordinary about Atlanta, and something that I think a lot of folks don't appreciate, some do, but enough don't. In Atlanta, and the mayor has said this to us, and he said it over and over, you can be pro-good government, you can be pro-diversity, and you could be pro-business. And the truth of the matter is, everything has to be forced. You have to work at that. And the idea of saying, hey, we need more people to vote without waiting 5 hours, but rather 15 minutes, you open State Farm Arena to create a polling location. We need more affordable housing, and we're trying to develop downtown in Centennial Yards. 20% of our housing units have to be affordable housing. That wasn't by accident, that was by demand and requirement of the mayor of Atlanta. So again, under the category of what do you do?
Yeah.
You work together. That's what you're supposed to do. And is it always perfect? Is it always smooth? No, of course not. But having great colleges, having strong government, and having a pro-business community that knows that they have to be more than just a business. The Atlanta Hawks has to be a community asset for its fan base. So we try to be.
And so when I
think, you could do a little more.
Get a ring.
I know we're not 500 right now, but it's going to change.
So it's early days. It's early in the season.
It's early. We have injuries. I got excuses. That's for another meeting. That's not for now.
So, Mayor, Tony mentioned downtown and the Centennial Yards project, which, a lot of superlatives around that, a lot of opportunity there. I say this as someone who grew up here, downtown has been a puzzle, to say the least, in terms of trying to figure out, how to really revive it in a way that befits the stature of the city, if I may be so bold. What do you think needs to happen, and what can we do, candidly, to help in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, being born and raised here, I grew up in Southwest Atlanta in Adamsville, and Adamsville, that's right. Man, we everywhere, ain't we? We just show up. But downtown, if it was easy, it would have been done already because we have very intelligent and capable and dedicated people that have been trying. But I think right now, what we have is a nexus, a bunch of people saying, let's do this, from Tony Ressler and the whole team at the Hawks that are doing Centennial Yards, to our academic institutions. Georgia State is growing, and it's actually, they're getting closer and closer. The AUC and Georgia State are getting closer and closer together in terms of, proximity and downtown. And, you have the Russells with the Russell Center and other people. So it's like it's happening, and now we also have the mindset of be community-minded in our development of it. So the community is asking for us to not just do, community and the economy is saying don't just do office buildings, but do residential mixed in with office. And so now you're going to have people living downtown. The city of Atlanta, I made a huge investment in buying 2 Peachtree, which is sitting right on top of the 5 Points MARTA station. It was a vacant office building. It was down to 5% occupancy, but it's still a functioning building. We're going to take that building and we're going to convert it from commercial to from commercial to residential, and so it'll be mixed income. It's going to have some housing that is for moderate income, low income, and some student housing. And this is, somewhere around 600 to 700 people can live in this one huge building, and then other buildings are coming across downtown and south downtown and across the Centennial Yards. But a part of this is revitalizing it so that it doesn't turn into a ghost town at night.
Yeah.
That after all the people leave from work at 5 p.m., you don't have any night activities. And that happens a lot in major cities where the downtown just bleeds back out to the suburbs. No, we want a vibrant downtown filled with arts and entertainment, but also people. And so we're investing in that right now, and we're trying to do some cleanup work, et cetera. So I think intentionality is our ally in this. Plus, I'm using the whole of government approach to utilizing, whether it's Invest Atlanta resources, whether it's MARTA, whether it's the various things that we have.
And Dr. Gayle, I mean, but part of this comes down to, so much of this comes down, and you said this at the top, to people. It's educating them, but it's also, that's the future workforce.
Right.
And so, as someone who is now in charge of a lot of, promising young women who I would imagine the gentleman to either side of you would love to have stay and work in Atlanta, how do you sort of create a scenario in which it is an attractive place to work, and what's your role in that, I guess?
Yeah, I guess, that's why partnerships are so important, because, one of the things we try to do is to expose our students to the different companies. I mean, Atlanta, every time I move back here, it's a different city.
Yeah.
And the number of companies who have moved and have decided to locate headquarters here or major sub-headquarters here because they want diverse talent. And they know that if you want diverse talent, highly educated, highly motivated workforce, there's nothing like it compared to Atlanta. And so we try to take advantage of that and make sure our students have access to the different companies and the different opportunities so that they think about this as a place to stay. We are a national school, so we have 25% or so of our students from the Georgia and particularly the metropolitan Atlanta area, but we also have students from California and New York and Illinois and across DC, across the country. We want to be a magnet for them and to have them stay here in this incredible city that has so much to offer, and they can contribute to that. And so we try to do what we can to make them realize the benefits.
Tony, I know workforce is something you've thought a lot about, and interestingly, I would love for you to talk about alt finance because it's a partnership that you have with Spelman among other schools, and part of it is bringing some, and as someone who has watched Wall Street for a long time, some desperately needed diversity to the world of finance. How does that play into, how do you sort of put these things together, as you think about that?
Well, again, in my day job, I'm the chairman of a large public company called Ares Management. We have $400 billion of assets, predominantly lending to the community, to businesses across the community. The finance industry has a problem. It needs to be far more diverse, and complaining about it doesn't make it more diverse. And the idea of going to black colleges, introducing curriculum and mentorships and forced hiring so that we can, in fact, make the industry more diverse. Again, there's 10, 12 million high-paying, wonderful jobs in the finance industry. And I would argue that it has a long way to go to create the kind of diversity that will make the industry better and the country better. But the idea of introducing that curriculum to colleges so that it is really a better understood industry. There's a large chunk of the African American community that doesn't consider going into the finance industry because they just haven't been exposed to it. The idea of being exposed and better informed, and the Alt Finance Corp, literally Ares Management, along with two other companies that we compete with, Oak Tree and Apollo Management, all basically committed $100 million to create a curriculum that makes young African Americans far better educated to the industry, making opportunities much more accessible.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is it's working to the benefit. But I just want to say, that doesn't happen if Spelman College doesn't buy in.
Right.
That doesn't happen if Spelman College leadership and students don't want better access. And of course, they do. And they prosper when you hit the ground running into a new industry, but you're better informed, you succeed.
Right. And so, Mayor Dickens, I wanted to ask you about the tech world, because it's where you started. Actually, my very first job in journalism was being the tech reporter for the Atlanta Business Chronicle, Go Business Chronicle. But one of the things, see, it's not just Go Hawks. You can root for journalism too, Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like the tech industry in Atlanta, you lived it, you came through Georgia Tech. I mean, it has been so fascinating to watch that grow. We are on the cusp, and we're going to hear more about this later this afternoon, I know, of an entirely new revolution in technology. How does Atlanta ensure that it keeps its seat at the table in the tech world?
Yeah, I mean, this is, like you said, my roots coming through Georgia Tech, growing up in Adamsville, becoming the first in my family to go to college to get a technology degree. It let me know that that the challenges are real. The digital divide was real then, and it's still real now, and that we have to do something to overcome that. And so my goal is to make Atlanta the top 5 ecosystem in technology. Meaning you have, you got the San Franciscos, the Seattles, and you have, of course, Boston, et cetera. But Atlanta has so much to offer in rich talent and diversity. And so that's why I created this inaugural position called the Senior Technology Advisor that's that's operated by Donnie Beamer, who's in the audience, and his team. Their goal and their job each day is to connect the technology community to talent, capital, and customers. Yeah. How to make sure that they find the talent, the capital, and customers. It doesn't hurt that we have the #1 HBCU in the nation right here in our backyard. Spelman. And you got Georgia Tech, which produces more engineers and computer scientists than anybody else in the nation. And so we have this really opportunity here with talent, and the talent is diverse that we don't even have to manufacture it. It's already in our DNA here. So in product development and design, we don't have to say, let us import some talent to start thinking about these things. So no, when we go across the country talking about Atlanta, it's how to harness all of this and make sure that talent doesn't bleed out to the coast after they graduate each summer, and how to keep them here. So we have all these programs here. We put up a $1 million this year to help startups across Atlanta. We did $20 million for at Invest Atlanta for small businesses, which includes some technology companies, and we are really helping ourselves by saying that the city's Fortune 500s as well as the city of Atlanta's government needs to be a customer of our own startups. So having an ecosystem, and then putting up capital. When Tony comes in the door along with others, they're not just coming in now like blindly just saying where to put their investments. They're saying we want to make sure we invest in this ecosystem that's about equity and opportunity. The big money he did with the Russell Center was instrumental in that. And now we have our city's pension fund that we're now we this year made sure that the city's pension fund we are invested in more black-owned firms than ever before, and that is intentionality to making sure that we make investments that will then look like the community that we live in.
And I would say you have an industry in the tech industry, like the finance industry, that needs to become more diverse to improve its industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is exactly why you want. Where else could you find that talent other than Atlanta?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, we just had a roundtable a couple weeks ago with black tech entrepreneurs for the visit of the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. He came. We had a wonderful roundtable collaboratively with Georgia Tech and brought together, I think it was 8 entrepreneurs in the tech space. Black. You don't get that anywhere else. I mean, it was fabulous, and to hear their stories, to hear their all that they're doing. But the challenge is, for a lot of these entrepreneurs, they're not getting the kind of capital investment that they would if they were white entrepreneurs. So we've got to think about how are we making sure we've got the talent, we've got to make sure we get the resources matched so that these businesses can take off like we know that they can.
Well, I feel much better and even more optimistic about the future having listened to the three of you. So thank you very much, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.